I have a question or a challenge for myself. Can I simulate one of the strongest concentric castles, Krak the Chevaliers, in a Stronghold game so that I can put the Hospitaliers design under a brutal test in multiple sieges and see if it can protect its lord inside? The source of this challenge is you guys who commented on my previous castle building videos, and I have took my time observing Krak the Chevalier's construction and defensive design so that I can understand the complicated and strong layout of this castle, especially when it has no 3D images on Google Earth like Alhambra for instance. But that won't be a problem in building the imposing Crusader fortress, which even the Mamluks couldn't take by force. This is a castle built in a foreign land, far from its owner's home country, and it never fell to a medieval war force. Today, we'll simulate that castle close to reality as possible within Stronghold 2's abilities, even twisting the game to simulate some details. After building it, we'll prepare to defend it under multiple sieges, to see if it can withstand the brutal attacking tactics of Stronghold 2. So welcome to Strongfort. Now, a Crusader fortress like Krak the Chevalier shall obviously be built in a desert game like Stronghold, Crusader DE or Crusader 2, while I do intend to do that in later videos, but I've chosen Stronghold 2 over Crusader DE because of the ability to build higher mountains and accurately control the levels. This feature will be essential to simulate the natural defense of Krak the Chevalier, and to make the experience more immersive, I have found this Stronghold 2 Crusader mod, which replaces some of the game's files with modded assets, resembling it to Stronghold Crusader 2. Of course it has some design flaws, but overall it has more than what I need, and we'll see in the building process, which started as usual with simulating the terrain. This can be done from Google Earth, as it shows the mountain in general detail, but the fortress itself will require some careful observation of its architectural design. Now, every player understands that we're still restricted to the game's building abilities that we've already tried to tweak with the desert mode to suit the project, but of course some differences will still be obvious, like the thin tall square tower in the game and the thick short one in reality, and the natural free layout walls that we can't simulate in the 8 directions in Stronghold. Thankfully, however, the 3D Stronghold 2 still provides a lot of potential to simulate many details in the defensive structure, while everything is 100% functional, and I mean it. I don't mean that every wall is just accessible, but also the traps and gateway will be functional for the garrison and a nightmare trap for the attackers, just as it was meant to be, as we'll see later after the building. Now, Krak the Chevalier is debated if it's a keepless castle, or if we can consider the large tower in the south, which was the Hospitaliers' Grand Master's home, as its keep. I've built the internal section with 3 towers at first, but I have literally tried every possibility to play a siege without a keep, and it was terribly weak, completely random and targetless. Even the AI of the game would never use its siege weapons. But when I have replaced one of the towers with a keep, finally the AI recognized its target and started showing the wonders of its warfare abilities, and really tested the castle's defenses to its limits, which we'll see in the siege. But I wanted to clarify why I have built a tower and replaced it with a keep later. I don't think it changed the aesthetic of the castle, and I have simulated the aqueduct with a wall. But when I made the game's water moat, it's terrible. It looks like Firefly designed it quickly before the game's release, so I've replaced it with a realistic river instead. And after some terrain work, welcome to Krak the Chevalier. The castle is characterized by its dual layers of defensive curtain walls, with D-shaped projections in the outer one, and the high towers on the inner castle. And the castle features a very special gateway, built to be a lethal trap for any attackers, with 3 gatehouses, each of which leads to a narrow pass before reaching the next, until anyone can ever reach the inner yard. And it's supplied with fresh water comes from a small river that comes from the mountain to the castle's aqueduct, filling the defensive moat with water. and we have a long killing ground between the outer and inner walls. Already feel sorry for whoever will fall into it. And of course, the very important strategic position of Krak on the high hill that puts any attackers in an exposed situation and gives a clear advantage to the garrison on the higher ground, as even the back of the castle, which faces the mountain, is heavily fortified, so that any attacker would think about taking a short route to the keep from here will be falling into a deadly mistake. For here, the imposing fortress of Krak the Chevaliers simulated in Stronghold 2. And now, I have garrisoned the entire castle with precision in positioning every kind of unit, of course on the inside and outside layers of the curtain walls. We have over 200 archers and around 130 armored crossbowmen, as we'll need both the speed of the rapid shooting of the archers and the deadly penetrating bolts of the crossbowmen. Around 130 guard soldiers on the walls to protect the rest of the garrison. And the castle is prepared with strategically placed traps, wooden rods that can smash enemy ranks, and heavy stone baskets to throw on any intruders' heads. A squad of mace warriors. These terrible fighters are like shotgunners in modern armies. We can't entirely rely on them without the sharp-bladed swordsmen who are guarding specific sensitive spots, with the elite units of the Hospitaliers Knights guarding the keep with the Lord's personal contingent. The castle is entirely garrisoned, prepared to defend itself against a very hard siege force coming from the west, and another army encamped on the mountain from the south. They immediately began deploying their siege engines. And the western forces have sent their burning carts, trying to provoke the garrison to release our traps early, so they can attack with their soldiers with less possible destruction. But we have destroyed the carts with arrows, and the trebuchet with a missile. To the south, the enemy catapults were still crossing the river, and the catapults in the west were suffering from the rain of arrows from above, before their army launched the assault with siege ladders, climbing the hill, closely with the troops in the south. The enemy archers were easily slain under the combined fire from both walls, which proved its efficiency in repelling the enemy. From the south, the enemy bombarded our tower with trebuchet's fire before we aimed our artillery at it. The last force of armored infantry in the west was heavily injured. While the enemy infantry in the south was advancing in an unorganized lines under the direct fire from the battlements and ballista. The attackers in the west were mostly destroyed. But the real danger was in the south, when my garrison was too busy to push off siege ladders, which the enemy's armored infantry used to climb our first wall. They walked under a rain of arrows and bolts, while others were destroyed with traps. However, more soldiers and knights climbed the castle from behind. But in their desperate struggle, they found no way to the keep but through a deadly long route on the walls, which were covered by rangers, so effective from their positions despite their small numbers, and supported by sniping artillery. But still, the heavily armored knights were intact. And every time they reclimb the wall, another missile takes a group of them off. And we survived their attack before they could resume the march on the wall. Here, the castle repelled the first siege, with little losses in our garrison. So I have repaired the castle after that attack, preparing the defense against the second siege, which consisted of another allied army, and all of these siege forces were on the hardest difficulty level, encamped on the eastern side of the castle where the only gate is located, and they brought with them archers, crossbowmen and knights. The attack started from their right wing with the advancing line of heavy siege weapons, which was easily destroyed by my garrison with the massive height advantage. This time, they launched an all-out attack with both wings. For a time, there was a battle between the archers, but my very high troops on the inner castle's towers were shooting the enemy on the low ground from complete safety. The garrison was again too busy to push up the ladder on the wall, which the line of knights rushed to. And now we're facing a truly dangerous situation of a complete infantry scaling. The catapults have tried their best to destroy the gate, but under our direct fire. Now, it was a disaster. The enemy infantry streamed on the walls, this time in better organization, as knights and macemen at the front, followed by men-at-arms. Despite the massive sniping from my artillery, they are now fighting their way directly to the inner gate without fearing my traps. If we can't repel these troops, then our keep itself is dangerously threatened. Our artillery was also busy shooting more siege engines. But at the last moment, they shot the remaining pack of soldiers off the wall. They stood up and returned again, climbing away from my traps. But they were too weak to withstand more arrows and bolts. The combined forces again failed to take the castle, with around a fourth of my garrison being lost in the gruesome siege. Now, Krak the Chevalier has survived 4 very hard sieges, with the entirety of the inner castle intact. Because of this annihilation, Krak the Chevalier has never failed historically in a brutal siege, but it was taken by cunning hacking, because even the terrible Mamluks who defeated the Mughal perfectly knew the danger of directly attacking the Hospitalier's fortress, much less gaining entry. While I understand that it wasn't realistic that a single javelin from a tower ballista would push off a group of knights, but it also wasn't realistic the sheer determination of the soldiers who was falling from the walls to get up and climb again. At least they shall be injured. The strong concentric design of Krak the Chevalier, especially with the high towers on the high hill, which was the reason I chose Stronghold 2 for building it, made the castle so efficient in defense, using both walls at the same time in every situation, not only as a second refuge like in cities' walls, but an effective double-layer curtain walls that can repel the strongest soldiers attacking from any direction, and very high to be targeted with artillery without being under the castle's range. That was the story of one of the strongest concentric castles rebuilt in Stronghold 2. Now let's read and discuss comments from the previous videos. On building Akka from Hashashin's Creed and massive siege in Stronghold Crusader DE, Gatehouse says, anyone willing to share my nostalgia for Assassin's Creed 1, to share my love for the actual history around it, and even tell me the proper pronunciation of the names has my complete and absolute support. So glad I found your video. I'm happy that you liked the video, and actually I was thinking about making another channel to play some titles from Hashashin's Creed that I can say that I can play professionally, both in combat and stealth, but unfortunately my weak graphics card couldn't maintain the 60 FPS on the highest graphics levels even on the very old titles at 1080p resolution, while many viewers have 2K monitors nowadays. I cannot make visually poor quality videos. But tell me your opinion about the idea. Shall I make it when I upgrade my PC or not? Especially when I can assure you that AC videos will be easier to produce and won't affect the Stronghold videos, God willing. On Just an Experiment in Stronghold DE, Molecular Lionel says, love the channel. I'd like to see some more Stronghold 2 videos. Thank you. I hope you liked today's Krak the Chevalier in the desert mode. On Building a Real Castle with Exciting Siege in Stronghold DE, Spoony Legs says, castles weren't just for fighting battles, but also for dominating areas. Hard to truly take a province if there is a castle that will withstand a siege. Sometimes the besieged did not need to win themselves and just needed to hold out and buy time for reinforcements. This was one of the strategies of the Crusaders to hold the occupied Sham provinces, and it was hard for the Arab and Turklar to besiege every fortified castle and city, so they lured them into battles outside their fortifications. I thank you guys for reaching this far, and will wait for your shared thoughts in the comments. If you like this video, subscribe to Stronghold channel, and I'll meet you on the coming battlefield.